Christmas is supposed to be warm. It's supposed to smell like pine needles and cinnamon, to sound like laughter drifting through softly lit homes, to feel safe. But for some people, Christmas is when the darkness comes closer, when routines change, when streets go quiet, when strangers feel bolder, and when whatever watches from the shadows knows you're distracted. Tonight, you're not hearing ghost stories told around a fireplace. These are true Christmas horror stories. Stories where the lights were on, where families were home, where people did everything right and still weren't safe. Lock your doors, turn down the lights, and listen closely, because the first story begins with a tradition meant to spread kindness and ends with a warning about inviting the wrong thing inside. Story 1. I picked her name out of a jar. I picked her name out of a jar. That's what started everything. Morrison's department store ran a community secret Santa program every December. Employees volunteered, dropped their names into a jar, and on Christmas Eve, we delivered gifts to someone in the community who'd signed up. It was supposed to be simple, cheap gifts, quick drop-offs, feel-good holiday nonsense. I was exhausted when my manager shoved the jar at me during my break. I'd been working double shifts for weeks, barely sleeping, barely thinking. I didn't even look when I reached in. The slip of paper felt wrong. Thicker than normal, old, yellowed at the edges like it didn't belong with the others. Mrs. Eleanor Chen, 847 Burt Street. And at the bottom, written smaller, shakier than the rest, lives alone. Please visit. That line stuck with me. Not, please help. Not, thank you. Please visit. I should have handed it back, but something about it tugged at me. Maybe guilt, maybe exhaustion. Maybe the idea that after weeks of dealing with screaming customers, I could do one genuinely kind thing. I spent my own money on the gift. Tea, cookies, a warm blanket, a wooden puzzle. I wanted it to feel thoughtful. On Christmas Eve, after my shift ended, I drove to Burt Street. The neighborhood was old and quiet. Houses leaned toward the road. Porch lights flickered or were completely dead. Snow hadn't fallen yet, but the air felt heavy and cold. Number 847 looked abandoned. Paint peeled in long strips. Gutters sagged. Dead plants rotted in window boxes. Only one window glowed faintly on the first floor. I sat in my car for a full minute, hand on the steering wheel. I almost left. I should have left. But I knocked. The silence afterward stretched too long. Then the door opened. Mrs. Chen was small, frail-looking, maybe in her 70s. Her white hair was pulled back so tightly it stretched the skin of her face. She wore a faded floral dress that hung off her frame like it belonged to someone else. Her eyes locked onto mine. Dark, too dark, and far too focused. "You came," she whispered. Not surprised, not confused, relieved, like she'd been waiting for me. I explained the Secret Santa program and handed her the basket. Her hands trembled as she took it, but she didn't look inside. She just stared at it, lips moving silently like she was counting or praying. The silence dragged on. Then she looked up. "You look just like her." "Like who?" I asked. "My Jennifer." She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Come in," she said softly. "Just for tea." Every instinct in my body screamed no. I told her I had family waiting. That's when she grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were ice cold. Her grip was shockingly strong. "You'll come back," she said. "Promise me." "I promise," I lied. I pulled free and hurried to my car. As I drove away, I checked the rearview mirror. She stood in the doorway the entire time, perfectly still, watching. The gifts begin. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept seeing her eyes. Christmas morning, there was a package on my doorstep. My roommate and I had both been awake. Neither of us heard a delivery. The box was wrapped in old paper, decorated with hand-drawn snowflakes. My name was written on it in the same shaky handwriting. Inside was a deep red knitted scarf and a note. For my dear Jennifer. Love, Mom. My name isn't Jennifer. I never gave Mrs. Chen my address. Morrison's had strict employee privacy rules. The next night, another package appeared. I stayed up watching the door. Camera pointed straight at the entrance. I finally fell asleep, out of exhaustion. When I woke up, the box was there. The footage showed nothing. 1 second, the hallway was empty. The next, there was a box. Inside were snickerdoodle cookies, still warm, my favorite. The note said, "I remember how much you loved these when you were little." I'd known Mrs. Chen for minutes. I'd never been little around her. The gifts kept coming. Every morning, a photograph of the house I lived in when I was 7, with the address visible on the mailbox. A bottle of my grandmother's perfume, discontinued 15 years earlier. A copy of my blood test results from a doctor's appointment 2 months prior. Things she couldn't possibly have. I called the police. The officer took a report, but said, without direct threats, there wasn't much he could do. He agreed to do a welfare check. When he called back, his voice had changed. "She's confused," he said. "Claims she only sent the first gift, but she keeps calling you Jennifer." I looked it up myself. Mrs. Chen had a daughter named Jennifer. She died 14 years ago in a car accident. She was everywhere. After that, I started seeing her. At the grocery store, at the gym, across the street from my work. She never approached. She just watched. My roommate saw her too, standing outside our apartment late at night, staring up at our window. I changed my routes, my schedule, my habits. It didn't matter. Then one morning, I woke up knowing something was wrong. My bedroom door was open. I always locked it. On my nightstand was a photograph. Me, asleep in my bed, taken from the angle of someone standing right beside me. I ran to the police station screaming. They went with me to 847 Burt Street. Mrs. Chen opened the door, smiling. "Jennifer," she said, "you brought friends." The house was a shrine, photos everywhere, and the woman in them looked exactly like me, not similar, identical. In the basement, behind a triple-locked door, they found a bedroom, and hundreds, thousands of photos of me. A calendar marked "Jennifer comes home forever." A syringe, a chain bolted to the wall. Files revealed other women. I was number 4. Mrs. Chen was committed. I moved, changed my name, left the state. But last Christmas, a package arrived. Inside was a red scarf and a note. "I'll always find you, Jennifer. Mom never gives up. I don't celebrate Christmas anymore, and I check my locks 5 times every night." They appeared at exactly the same time every night. I checked my watch the first time because the timing felt too deliberate to be coincidence. I was house-sitting for my parents while they spent Christmas week in Florida. Their place was in a quiet, suburban development called Millbrook Estates. Wide lawns, spaced-out houses, no sidewalks, no foot traffic, easy money, quiet, boring. The house felt too big at night, but I figured I could handle a week alone. On December 21st, the doorbell rang. I glanced at the clock. Exactly 9 p.m. I checked the peephole. 3 people stood on the porch, in perfect formation. A woman in front, a man slightly behind her, a younger woman to the side. They wore old-fashioned winter clothing, long wool coats, thick scarves, leather gloves. One of them held a metal lantern even though the porch light was on. Something about them felt wrong. I couldn't place it yet, but it set off a quiet alarm in my chest. I opened the door. "We're here to sing for you," the woman said. Her voice was melodic but flat, rehearsed. Before I could respond, they started singing Silent Night. Their harmony was flawless, better than any professional choir I'd ever heard. But as they sang, I noticed something unsettling. None of them looked at me. Their eyes were fixed on a point just past my shoulder, glassy and unmoving. They didn't blink. When the song ended, all three smiled at the exact same time. "Merry Christmas," they said, in perfect unison. Then they turned and walked away together, disappearing down the driveway. I stood there longer than I should have, trying to understand what felt off. I called my mom. "Did you hire carolers or something?" She laughed. "No, we've lived there for almost 20 years. Nobody does that." She told me to go to bed, said I sounded tired, but I knew what I saw. Night 2. The next night, at exactly 9 p.m., the doorbell rang again. Same 3 people, same positions, same clothes. Even the lantern was held at the exact same angle. They sang, "O Holy Night." Same perfect harmony, same unblinking eyes, same synchronized smile. "Merry Christmas." I set up my phone to record through the window before opening the door. I wanted proof. But when I checked the footage afterward, the porch was empty the entire time. No figures, no sound, just an empty porch. Night 3. On December 23rd, I didn't answer the door. I set the phone up again and sat on the couch waiting. At exactly 9 p.m., the doorbell rang. The porch on the screen was empty, but I could hear them, singing. Joy to the world. Perfect. Clear. Too close. Then the lyrics changed. "We know you're watching. We know you're there. We've been waiting for you to care." My hands started shaking. They sang details about my life, my college major, my childhood dog's name, my birthday, the city I was born in, things no one in that neighborhood could know. The song ended. "Merry Christmas." The recording showed nothing. I called my best friend. He told me I was stressed, said house-sitting alone was messing with my head. I wanted to believe him. Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, I decided I wasn't answering the door. I turned off every light in the house and waited upstairs by the window, phone ready, camera rolling. At exactly 9 p.m., they appeared. They didn't walk up. They didn't approach. 1 second, the porch was empty. The next, they were standing there. They rang the doorbell and waited in silence. Then they started singing. "Hark, the herald angels sing." From above, I could see their faces clearly in the porch light. They looked wrong. Their expressions were slack, doll-like, and none of them were breathing. Midway through the song, all 3 heads turned at the exact same time. They looked directly at me. Their mouths kept singing, their eyes locked onto mine. "We see you watching. We know you hide. We've been waiting right outside." I fell backward away from the window. The singing continued, then stopped. "Merry Christmas." When I finally looked again, the porch was empty. That's when I decided to leave. The basement. As I grabbed my keys, I froze. Muddy footprints crossed the hallway, leading from the front door to the basement stairs. I hadn't opened the door. I called the police. They searched the house, found nothing. But when I told them about the carolers, one officer went pale. He pulled up an old article. 40 years earlier, 3 people went missing while caroling on Christmas Eve. Same neighborhood, same time, same route. Their bodies were never found until that night. The police forced open the basement door. Under a patch of newer concrete, they found 3 bodies. The carolers had never left. They'd just been waiting. The house was a steal. That's what we kept telling ourselves. A 3-bedroom Victorian on Ashwood Street. Original hardwood floors, tall ceilings, a wraparound porch, $60,000 below market value. My partner Alex and I had been saving for years. When our realtor showed us the listing, we didn't hesitate. We asked why it was so cheap. She hesitated. The previous owner relocated quickly, she said. Job transfer. Alex joked. No one die here, right? She smiled too fast. No, nothing like that. We should have asked more questions. We signed the papers in November. Moving and move-in day felt perfect. The house had that old home smell people romanticize. Creaky floors, groaning pipes, drafty windows. The attic access was a pull-down ladder in the upstairs hallway. We meant to check it later. Early December, we decorated for Christmas, lights, garland, a huge tree in the living room. The next morning, I came downstairs and froze. The ornaments had been rearranged. Not knocked over, rearranged. Every ornament organized into a perfect spiral by size and color. Alex swore they didn't do it. Neither did I. No pets, doors locked, windows secured. We laughed it off. We shouldn't have. The message 3 days later, the ornaments changed again. This time, they spelled a word. Help, we called the police. They suggested a camera. We installed one that night. The footage showed nothing, but the next morning, the ornaments spelled home. That's when we noticed food going missing. Not enough to be obvious, just enough to survive. The attic. The footsteps started a few nights later, slow pacing above our bedroom, every night between 1 and 3 a.m., always the same pattern. One night, Alex saw a shadow in the hallway. It moved fast, toward the attic. The ladder was hanging open. I climbed up in daylight. In the far corner, hidden behind boxes, was a sleeping bag, empty water bottles, granola bar wrappers, a bucket used as a toilet. Someone had been living up there. We called the police. They searched. Probably a squatter, they said. He's gone now. We changed every lock, installed cameras everywhere, padlocked the attic ladder. We told ourselves we were safe. Christmas night, December 23rd. We were asleep when we heard metal scraping. The padlock. Someone was trying to open it. Then the ladder began to lower. It shouldn't have been possible, but it was. Footsteps descended. A man's voice spoke calmly from the hallway. I know you're awake. Alex called 911. The doorknob turned slowly. I lived here before you, the man said. Before anyone. He told us he'd been watching us for weeks, from inside the walls. He knew our routines, our habits, our fears. This house isn't haunted, he said. It's occupied. Discovery police arrived. They searched the house again. This time, they checked the walls, hidden access panels, crawl spaces, a network of passages, photos of us sleeping, journals, schedules. The man had lived there for years, through multiple families. He vanished before they found him. We moved out the next morning, sold the house at a loss. The next family stayed less than a month. Then another, and another. The house still stands, still sold cheap, still advertised as full of character. Because the real horror isn't ghosts. It's knowing someone can live inches away from you, watching, waiting, and you'd never know until they decide it's time to come out.